Welcome, you're watching Vox News, your daily evening news with Rita Kamkumo. Our headlines today. President Cyril Ramaphosa unveils a $60 billion plan to boost South Africa's economy. The Inspector General of Police in Nigeria urges not to use force against protesters as demonstrations continue in the country. The opposition in Ivory Coast is calling for the boycott of the presidential election scheduled for the 31st of October. Our top story today. President Cyril Ramaphosa on Thursday unveiled a $60 billion plan to boost South Africa's economic growth. The country is expected to embark on major public works and job creation drive in response to the coronavirus pandemic. According to Ramaphosa, his plan could unlock more than 1 trillion rands in investment over the next 4 years and create more than 800,000 jobs. President Ramaphosa stated that despite these vital interventions, however, the damage caused by the pandemic to an already weak economy, to employment, livelihoods, public finances, and state-owned companies has been colossal. In Nigeria, the Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, on Thursday urged police officers not to use force against peaceful protesters. Demonstrations that began earlier this month against police brutality continue in the country despite the dissolution of the controversial special unit of the Nigeria police called SARS. Adamu stated that citizens have fundamental rights of freedom of expression, assembly and movement, and that these must always be upheld and protected by the police. He also appealed to protesters to continually conduct themselves peacefully and guide their ranks against infiltration by criminal elements. On the political front in Ivory Coast, 2 leading opposition candidates, Pascal Affinguessan and Henri Konan Bédié, on Thursday called for the boycott of the presidential election scheduled for the 31st of October, in which incumbent Alassane Ouattara is seeking a highly controversial third term.
We have decided to solemnly bring to the knowledge of all our voters, all our activists and the people of Côte d'Ivoire, to the knowledge of national and international opinion, that the ongoing electoral process does not concern us in any way, that we are not at all concerned by this ongoing electoral process, that this electoral process is illegal because it does not meet any international criteria, and that our activists, just like the Ivorian voters, should abstain from participating.
The opposition candidates urging to boycott the presidential election came as no surprise. On Thursday, there were no campaign posters for the opposition on display in the capital city Abidjan. So far, only President Ouattara appeared on billboards with slogans deeming him the best choice for Ivory Coast. Many fear that the upcoming election may trigger a political crisis comparable to the one which plunged the country into chaos a decade ago. In neighboring Guinea, the election campaign has entered its final stretch ahead of Sunday's presidential election. President Alpha Conde's ruling party on Thursday held a parade through the streets of the capital city, Conakry, while supporters of opposition candidate Cellou Dalein Diallo rallied in front of his party's headquarters.
We are here today to welcome our candidate, Cellou Dalein Diallo. He has been everywhere, he has welcomed, he has had a great mobilization. It shows that everyone is ready for change. I am confident and at the same time worried because there have been several events that have taken place. There have been breakage. There have been people who have been chased from one city to the other in their own country. There has been too much frustration, but I know that this will be okay. Guineans are peaceful.
President Alpha Condé, in office since 2010, is hoping for a disputed third term in the upcoming elections.
For 10 years, we have been suffering behind this gentleman, Alpha Condé, the 92-year-old man. So we are really tired. The people of Guinea are suffering a lot. Though we rely on Mr. Selou Dalien, we are sure of him. We are happy with him.
Guinea's main opposition leader is set to face President Alpha Condé on Sunday. Meanwhile, in Guinea, Guinean bloggers have set up a useful online platform for citizens ahead of Sunday's presidential election.
Guinevote is a citizens' web platform that aims to democratize election observation through digital technology. This is a training session for election data managers. On election day, we will have several e-observers, several people in the field who will send us data via digital channels. So the team will be in charge of managing all this data, classifying and analyzing it.
The online platform, which keeps track of any incidents reported by citizens, also holds incumbent President Alpha Condé, who is seeking a third term, into account.
The electoral promises of the president were collected in 2015 and they were all put on a web platform called lahidi.org, and so for 4 years, since 2016, we have followed and evaluated these different promises. According to our analysis, 13% of the promises have been kept, for instance 40 commitments out of 345. But the other thing to note is that we have documented 47% of the promises that have not been kept. And by not kept, we mean that there has been no concrete actions towards the fulfillment of these promises. There were a lot of promises, and that led us to restrict our actions a bit, because at the beginning we wanted to analyze all the president's promises, but there were so many, hence the nickname Papa Promises, that we have decided to confine ourselves to the electoral promises which were documented.
President Alpha Condé, who was democratically elected in 2010 and then re-elected in 2015, will this Sunday ask his country's 5 million voters for a controversial third term. On the education front, universities and other higher education institutions in Cameroon reopened on Thursday after a 7-month hiatus due to the coronavirus pandemic. The various universities have adopted strict coronavirus safety measures such as social distancing, mandatory mask wearing, and temperature checking while receiving returning students. The reopening of universities comes as COVID-19 prevalence in the country is decreasing, with a recovery rate of 95%, according to the Ministry of Public Health. In Uganda, schools reopened on Thursday for final year students after 7 months of closure due to the coronavirus pandemic. Final year students in higher education institutions also resumed classes. However, many schools across the country that have not met the strict COVID-19 safety measures will remain closed until further notice. The education sector is expected to fully reopen learning institutions in early 2021. On the security front, Mali on Thursday began a 3-day national mourning to pay tributes to the victims of Tuesday's terrorist attack that killed at least 23 people, mainly soldiers and civilians. So far, no group has claimed responsibility for the attack that took place in the Mopti region in central Mali on Tuesday. The 3-day mourning follows an announcement by interim President Bandao on Wednesday. The attack is one of the deadliest since the military coup of the 18th of August. Mali's junta leaders have recently vowed to win the war against terrorism in the country. In Sudan, businessman Abu al-Qassem Bartoum on Thursday spoke of his controversial plan to organize an icebreaker trip to Israel.
We want to break the psychological barrier, and I consider that we have a 60-year-old cultural alienation, whether it's Arab, religious, or ideological. This cultural alienation has created a fear within the Sudanese and an unjustified hostility towards a state called Israel.
The former member of parliament was suspended in 2015 after he called for the abolition of Islamic law and for relations with Israel.
The issue with Israel is not a religious or ideological one, but it's a political one that created a crisis for Sudan, and it undoubtedly needs to be addressed.
Bartoum plans to travel to Israel with 40 Sudanese people from all walks of life, regions and ethnicities.
It's a popular delegation made up of most of the ethnicities present in Sudan, whether from the center, north, east or west of Sudan, and it contains members from various sectors, athletes, artists, academics and university professors from both genders, men and women.
The businessman's project is stirring controversy in the North Africa region, where leaders are split on the question of normalization of ties with the Jewish state. That's it for today. Thank you for watching Vox News.